Hey you guys, in today's video, I wanted to give you 3 very simple tips that you can implement if you're at a place on the Sinclair Method where you are feeling impatient and frustrated with your progress on the method. Believe me, this happens to a lot of people because the Sinclair Method is a long-term treatment protocol, so it needs time to work. A minimum of about 6 months for most people. I think most people it's even longer than that based on what I've seen over the last 5 or 6 years. So suffice it to say, people can get impatient with this protocol. And sometimes we hit plateaus and just challenges can arise because life is difficult sometimes. So today I wanted to just give you 3 very basic tips that can help you with this if this is something you're struggling with. And I want you to stick around till the end because the third tip that I'm going to share I think is the most important one that I have applied in my life and helped me not only with the Sinclair Method, but it's honestly something I still use and apply in my day-to-day life. So let's get started. All right, so tip number 1 might surprise you, but it's going to be an invitation for you to just take a step back and do the bare minimum of the method, meaning stay compliant, make sure that you're always still taking the Naltrexone an hour before your first alcoholic drink of the day, but don't put pressure on yourself to do other things if you don't feel like it. There's so many things that we can do alongside the medication to help it work better and do its job, like drink tracking and habit change and goal setting and creating new coping tools and all of these things, which of course we focus on inside of our program, but sometimes it can be a lot and it can overwhelm people. And some of that, maybe momentum we felt early on when we just started in the method, we commonly call it the honeymoon phase. We can feel really excited. We found this answer. We're trying something new, or we want to do everything to help the medication do its job. But that can fizzle out over time and that motivation can wear off. And especially if we're at a plateau, we don't feel like we're making the progress that we should be, we can just feel frustrated and get burnt out. And so this is where I think it can be helpful for you to just take a step back, take a breather, do the bare minimum. Yes, drink on the medication naltrexone, but don't put extra pressure on yourself for at least a period of time, whether it's a couple of days or a couple of weeks. And try to be aware if you have maybe unrealistic expectations of what the timeline should look like for you on the Sinclair Method. As a coach, I hear this all of the time where people, they're brand new to the method. Maybe they're a couple days or a couple months in, or maybe they're even 6 months in, but they feel really discouraged because maybe they're not progressing as quickly as that person is over there. And comparison is really the thief of joy. And so sometimes people, I think, can put unnecessary pressure on themselves with how quickly they should be responding to the method and medication. But we really have to be aware if we're doing that because it's just adding unnecessary stress. And we really need to make this our own journey so that we can make sustainable changes in our relationship with alcohol using this method, but not saying that we need to go as fast as Sally is over here. We want to make these sustainable lifestyle changes, and everyone is coming to the method with different histories, different baggage, different challenges. If someone's starting this treatment and their husband is supportive and they're really happy in life, they have grandkids, they love their job, if they have all of these things going for them, they might progress more quickly on the method than someone who maybe just went through a divorce and is having health consequences and lost their job. So it's not apples to apples. We cannot compare ourselves to each other. The only person we can compare ourselves to is the person we were yesterday. So tip number 1, just take a step back, take a breather for a little while. Yes, take naltrexone, but don't put unnecessary external pressure on yourself, and take this time to really take care of yourself in other ways outside of the Sinclair Method. Tip number 2 is to listen to a Sinclair Method success story. We have a whole library of them on here, and to be honest, most of these success stories are people who did not have an ideal Sinclair Method journey. They're filled with challenges with compliance or family support or their own habits that they struggled to change. And I often hear from people just how helpful those success stories are because it helps them relate to somebody who has already gone through this journey before them and maybe had similar struggles and challenges, but they made it out on the other side. So definitely check out the library of success stories that we have here. This can help encourage you and edify you and make you realize that, hey, this isn't a perfect journey for any of us, really. Yes, some people make progress more quickly, but more often than not, people are having their own challenges and battles with this process as well. So definitely take time to listen to a success story. Okay, so tip number 3, I told you I saved the best tip for last, and this really has to do with a philosophy in how we approach our TSM process. And really, it's about recognizing that it's the small little things that you do each and every day that will add up to success over the long run with the Sinclair Method. Now, hear me out, because this is a mindset shift that I have made in my own personal life. And I was inspired to do so after I read this book called The Slight Edge, which I highly recommend. And what this book really emphasized for me is what success looks like in life. I know for me, and I think this happens for a lot of us, we think that success is like a one-time event. Like, oh, we're going to start Naltrexone and all of the sudden my drinking's going to be better and everything's going to be great. Or I'm going to quit drinking and I'll just feel awesome. But that is not really how success works in life. And I want to pop up this chart from his book, which really gives a picture of what success looks like over the long term and really highlights the importance of these small things that we do every single day. So you can see on this chart, he has kind of 2 arrows. One is pointing upward and one is pointing downward. And his whole philosophy and what he teaches in the book is that it's these little decisions that we make every single day that add up to success over the long run. They really compound in the long run. So let me give you some examples of these as they apply to the Sinclair Method. And as he says up here, these little things that we can implement in our life, they're easy to do. So they're things that we can easily do without giving much thought. But the challenge and the danger lies in the fact that they're easy not to do. And so just some examples with the Sinclair Method, today I can take my naltrexone and be compliant. That's an easy decision to do, or not. It's easy to be compliant and it's easy not to be compliant. Another example, I can do my, a desired habit or coping tool before I start drinking just to help get that habit established, or not. It might be, I'm going to go for a walk for 30 minutes before I take naltrexone and drink. That's pretty low bar, something that's fairly easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. Another one is I can have a glass of water between each of my drinks tonight, or not. And so in the moment, these decisions, I think, can feel so insignificant to us. Like, oh, big deal. I didn't have water between my drinks tonight. I'll do that tomorrow. But what he talks about in this book is that it's those exact moments, those micro decisions that we make moment to moment that add up to our success over time, or ultimately add up to our failure over time. And this is really a philosophy that I want you to get with the Sinclair Method, that success with this protocol is not about any one massive event that you're going to do, but really it's about these tiny decisions you make day in and day out. But when they're done with consistency, they compound over time and ultimately add up to your success on the method. But if we're not thinking about success on the method in that way, if we're thinking about, oh, I just want this problem behind me and why am I not fixed by now, and I'm on naltrexone, it should be working. But are you really looking at, the little decisions that you're making every single day that really cast that vote for the future version of yourself? That's how James Clear puts it in the book Atomic Habits, which he kind of talks about this in his book as well a bit, but it just landed with me so much better with the Slight Edge example and how he described it. And I really love how he also describes it and illustrates it on this chart where he said, what's uncomfortable early becomes comfortable later. So for example, having water between each alcoholic drink, that's a habit you have to establish that can be uncomfortable and out of the ordinary in the beginning, but it becomes easier the more you do it. And then on the contrary to that, where he says what's comfortable early becomes uncomfortable later. So if you continue to kind of neglect having waters between each of your drink, again, it seems like this tiny decision, right? And it's comfortable right now. Like, oh, it's extra work. I have to go up and get the water and I'm not going to have my third glass. Like, it's easier to not do it, right? But it's comfortable now, but it becomes uncomfortable later. simply because we're still stuck in the habits and patterns that we want to change ultimately with the Sinclair Method. That's why we got on the Sinclair Method in the first place. So just to sum up this third tip, it's about this philosophy and mindset that we have as we approach the Sinclair Method, where we're not looking at it like it's this giant mountain we have to climb and do it super quickly and get frustrated because it's not happening fast enough. We're really having to approach it with a philosophy of looking at the micro things that we can do every single day that will add up to compounding effects and success over time, like whether or not you're compliant, like whether or not you're doing the little things each day to help shift your habits, or, incorporating mindfulness, or changing up your drink, or eating a meal before your first alcoholic drink. All of these things that we talk about that help the Sinclair Method do their job. It's really important to view these things as valuable and get in the practice of doing them. And that's what's going to ultimately lead to your success on TSM. And just a personal testimony from me, as I read this book and started to apply things in my own life, I actually read it after the Sinclair Method. And when I read it, I was at a point in my life where I wasn't really exercising very much. I just didn't like going to the gym, and I kept wanting to start walking more. But I kept putting it off because I'm like, walking's not exercise. Like, it's not a big deal. I would go out and walk maybe once or twice a week, but I didn't have this consistency around it. And his book really hit home for me that it's in those moments where I decide, am I going to walk today or not? Even if it's for 15 minutes or for 2 hours, I was often deciding not to walk. And so it just kept me stuck in this pattern of like not really exercising because I wasn't valuing how important it was for me to be consistent with that effort. But after I read this book, I started to go out on walks on a regular basis. Even when I didn't feel like it, I would just say, I'm going to do it for 15 minutes. And that almost always turned into 30 minutes or an hour or more. And that has been over 2 years now. And I still continue to walk. It's aided in me losing like 10 to 15 pounds or something. And it's really been a game changer for me because we all have those decisions in our day where it's like, I can do this. Oh, but it would be easier not to do it. And our brain likes to default to the easy choices. It likes to default to not having a meal before you drink because that's the habit you've been in, or opening up that second bottle because that's what you're used to doing. Your brain likes what's comfortable, but we have the power to, bring in more of a mindful mindset to make the decision. Are we going to do this thing that's very easy to do, but it's also easy not to do? But if we recognize the long-term compounding effects of doing those things with consistency, that's ultimately what adds up to success over time. And this is true with the Sinclair Method, and it's really true with anything in life. So, all right, you guys, I hope that this was helpful for you. If you're at a place where you're feeling impatient and frustrated with your progress on TSM, again, just to recap, tip number 1, just take some of the pressure off of yourself. Take a step back, take a breather. Yes, stay compliant, but if there's other pressures you're placing on yourself that you feel like are just overwhelming or exhausting you, just take a break for a few days or a few weeks, whatever you need. Tip number 2, listen to a success story. I have a whole library on here. And again, these are people who have gone through the Sinclair Method before you, but most of them did not have a perfect journey. So it's really edifying to be able to hear from others who can relate to what you're going through today. And tip number 3 is to re-examine your philosophy with how you're approaching the Sinclair Method and ask yourself if you are valuing those small, tiny decisions that you make every single day and recognizing the value of those to compound into results and ultimately your success over time. Remember, these are things that are really easy for you to do in the moment, but they're also really easy not to do. And so I just want to say, when you feel ready to start thinking about that and start making those decisions that are casting that vote for your future self, and I definitely recommend the book, The Slight Edge. I love how he describes it. It really motivated me. And like I said, I still apply that principle to my life today. So that's all from me today. Thank you guys so much for taking time to watch. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.